Hey gamers, we're back with another episode of Let's Create a Competitive Card Game. In this episode, we'll be taking a look at the last few skill card effects. So before we get started, if you like these videos, be sure to like, subscribe, and all of that other good stuff. Alright, so last episode we came up with the skill effects for the universal skill cards. I will not go over those, however, I will post a link to the previous episode up here. That way, if you want to see what those effects and art descriptions were, you can take a look at that link. Alright, so the first skill cards we're going to take a look at are mind specific. And if you recall, in the first set, the effects of the mind class are all bounce effects. Therefore, the skill effects will be geared towards bounce effects. And also, just to reiterate what a skill card is a card that can be played on either player's turn, and you can use a skill card to respond to any game action on either player's turn. Alright, so the first effect I came up with was essentially if a card is removed from the play area, you may instead return that card to its owner's hand. So that is very similar to a bounce type effect, and what that does is it does let you get around card effects that say if a card is destroyed or if a card is sent to another play area, etc., what happens. So this does let you get around that effect. And reading this as written, I will need to update this. So let me do that now. If a card effect remove a card from and I'm just going to specify the play area, as remove from play could be taken as an effect that actually removes a card from play, and that's not the intention. It's just if a card would be, say, sent from the play area to either the deck or the discard pile or to the remove from play area, then you could use this effect. Alright, so the art description which I gave the artist was that I wanted a magician in the middle of a stage with two doors on opposite ends, and I wanted essentially a guy walking in where you could see the back half of his body entering one door, and in the other door, as it's opening the I guess the opposite way, you would see the front half of his body coming out. And thinking about that now, there really shouldn't be a magician center stage. The magician should be the one stepping through the doors. So I will also have to reword this. Now, the idea behind this came from, there were two magician movies that came out, I want to say a few to several years back. There was one I think called The Illusionist, and I honestly don't recall the other one. I think it had Christian Bale in it. But he did a trick where he would bounce a ball, open up a door on one side of the stage, and then he'd walk out a door on a different side of the stage and catch the ball. So that is really where I got the idea of this art description from. So yeah, moving on to the next card effect. It is, if you have more cards in your hand than your opponent must return one card from play to their hand. So again, just emphasizing the bounce effects. And since this is a skill card, it does allow for some potentially interesting plays. Say if your opponent is declaring an attack, or if they're trying to use an effect which requires some specific card on the field, or if they only have one other of a certain type of card on the field, you could use this to potentially negate that effect. And the art description which I gave the artist was that I wanted essentially just a magician with fan cards. I know that's not very creative, but it's really the only thing I could think of. So for the final Mind Guild skill, the effect is you can only play this card when another card would be destroyed, and instead of that card being destroyed, it is returned to the owner's hand. So this goes really well with any effect that says when this card is removed from play, for instance, XYZ happens, because instead of that card being, and I shouldn't say removed from play, when that card is removed from the play area, aka sent to the discard pile, put back into the deck, or put back into your hand. So if you were to use this card when that card would be destroyed, you could put it back in your hand and get a second use of that effect. So it's kind of like a +1, but it is a -1 to play a card, so it kind of balances out. However, it is essentially more than a +1 as you get that other card's effect again. Alright, so the art description, which I sent the artist, was that I really wasn't sure. So I just sent her a little description of what this card effect does. And I kind of explained to her that it could be used on any player's turn. And also that it should have a magician in it. Alright, so moving on to the Power Guild. The first effect that I came up with for the Power Guild was that a target warrior you control would gain 1 attack for each follower your opponent controls. Now, this is very similar to another talent effect that I had up here. But the thing is that you can use this on your turn or your opponent's turn. So you can use this as a defensive skill card or an offensive skill card. And it really makes it so that the more characters or followers your opponent has, the stronger your card will become. And something that I should also mention is that in this game, anything that increases attack or defense only lasts to the end of the turn. So there are card games out there where they'll say that something increases a card attack and that's permanent as long as that card is out. In this game, any stat increasing effect only lasts until the end of the turn unless the card specifies otherwise. So the art description, which I gave the artist, is again fairly simple. I just wanted a warrior facing a few other people. And by facing, I mean fighting, not like actually just looking towards other people. So I did have to kind of explain that to the artist as well. So the next effect for the Power Guild was that a warrior would gain attack equal to its printed attack for this turn. So from what I said previously, where effects only last until the end of the turn, this technically wouldn't need to say this turn. It would just be for that turn. So in the rules, I guess I kind of have to decide, must it say this turn or is it just implied that it's this turn? Because if it has to say this turn, then this card here would be permanent. So yeah, I'll kind of decide that probably after this episode. So yeah, this essentially just doubles the printed attack of any warrior card you control. And the art description which I gave the artist was that I wanted a warrior with a fairly large sword and a smaller sword on the ground next to him. So yeah, I'll see what the artist does with that. And the final power skill card was that the target card would gain 7 attack this turn. And notice this does not say target warrior. This is any card, you can target it and it gains 7 attack for this turn. And I think that is how I will do that. I will say this turn, as it seems like a lot of the effects I have already said this turn. So if it doesn't say this turn, it's permanent. Now the art description which I gave the artist was that I wanted weapons in an armory or some room. So again, she can really do anything she wants with that. And with the fact that I do like the art that she produces, I am sort of, well, I shouldn't say sort of, I'm very confident that she will present something that I do like. Alright, so moving on to the life-specific skill cards, the first effect that I came up with was that you would gain 2 life for each cleric destroyed in combat this turn. Now, this specifically says each cleric, so therefore it doesn't have to be your clerics. So if you're going against someone who is also using clerics, this is technically a good card to play against another cleric player. And the art description which I gave the artist was that I wanted maybe a cleric praying over several other dead clerics. So yeah, another fairly simple art description. Now the next life skill effect was just a flat out gain 10 life. So this is very game changing. Um, 10 life is a lot of life to just gain at once for a flat out skill card. Um, yeah, this is going to be a good card, I personally believe. And I wasn't too sure on the art description, so again, like I did with the warrior, I kind of explained to her that this card effect lets some card gain life, and there should be some cleric in the card art. Now, for the final life skill card, the effect I came up with was that you would gain 1 life for each cleric in play. And again, this is a really good card to use against other cleric players. So yeah, and that is also it is a decent effect. I think gain 10 life may be a better skill card in general, as you can gain n number of life using either this card or this card. So they have the potential to be better than this, but for a flat out cost, maybe this 10 life will be better. Now the art description, which I gave the artist, was that I just wanted clerics fighting other clerics, as this card is very good when you're going against another cleric player. And something else to mention, if you've probably noticed, is that with each of the guilds, or sorry, with each of these guild card skill card effects, I did do two. There should be 2 specific to a class, like a magician. Now, the mines aren't very specific to magician. However, the power is specific to warrior. There are 2 effects that are specific to warrior and 1 effect that is general. And the same thing for life. There's 2 effects which are specific to clerics and 1 effect which is just general. So I did come up with the mind effects first, and then I came up with power and life, and I kind of thought, hey, I want to make things very specific to classes, and then sort of a universal power, life, or mind card. So I may actually go back and change the mind effects to be specific to magician, at least 2 of these. So yeah, that is all for the skill cards, and next episode we will not be doing the companion cards, as I have a very good idea how I want to do those. However, I do not know the effects which I want to put on them. So we will go ahead and jump to the follower cards. And just to kind of give an idea of how I envision the companion card effects being, I envision them, if you've ever played the spoils, they had locations which had several different effects on them, and when you met a certain threshold, each of those effects would kick in. Same thing, sort of like Planewalker's effects, but not technically the same. So essentially, again, when you got enough ability points, say one effect kicks off when you have 3, another one kicks off when you have 5, and another one if you have 9 ability points or talent or skill points in play. And with companions being temporary, they get shuffled back in your deck. So the longer the game goes on, the more powerful your companions get, the later you bring them out. Alright, so this will be the end of this episode. And again, if you like these videos, please be sure to like, subscribe, and all of that other good stuff. Thanks.